G'day. The official teaser for the new Apple F1 movie was officially released on Sunday, just prior to the British Grand Prix. That's a year out from the launch and before the movie's even been finished. What did I think? Intriguing. This is a big deal for Formula One, and to have the movie officially named F1, but more importantly perhaps using the official F1 logo, was huge. This movie's going to get out to millions and will be huge for branding and bringing in new followers to this sport. Interestingly, it was all timed around Silverstone. This is the biggest race of the year. And how does the teaser start?
Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston, now McLaren, all have a speed on the straights.
Straight up, we get the names of half of the teams on the grid. The teaser itself runs a minute 47, and in the 2 days that it's been up, it's had 3.5 million views on F1's YouTube channel. Now, this is not Mr. Beast video big, but it's still sizable and shows that people are very interested in what this movie's going to be like. And for me, it was quite odd that it would be released a year out. So let's go into more detail about the teaser.
Our shot is battling in the turns. We need to build our car for combat.
How am I supposed to make that safe?
Who said anything about safe?
Straight up for me, I'm getting Moneyball vibes. That's the movie he did about the Oakland A's, which I love, and very much it's a similar situation here. Underdog trying to take on the big players. This is the first look we get at the cars on track, and here you can make out that the real F1 cars are in front of the Apex cars. Where was this shot? This was Imola, on the main straight, and as that crane lowers to reveal the pit wall for Apex, you can see on the right hand side one of the corporate areas towards the end of pit lane, and they are actually at one end of pit lane, which would suggest that they are at the lower end of the teams in terms of ranking. And then we get Queen's We Will Rock You playing while Damson Idris comes into the garage and throws his helmet. Two things about that. I've seen lots of emotion like that. I've seen drivers arguing, pushing and shoving, throwing helmets and gloves. So that depicts what goes on in a garage. But also on the music front, that's the exact song that was playing prior to the start of the British GP on Sunday, and it was rousing as I was walking from the grid down to turn 1 for the start. Now, having a look at the garage here, I've got to say, this is clean. In fact, this might be hospital grade clean. It is extremely impressive. And as I've mentioned before, they have had a garage at Silverstone, which looked clean, but certainly not that clean. That to me looks like a studio. But I also understand they had another garage over in the F2 pit lane. Then we see some vision of cars on track, and you probably already know that they have had cars running on track during race weekends, both last year and this year. And they've had quite elaborate camera rigs on them to enable them to capture this sort of stunning vision. 45 seconds, you see Brad standing out on the grid waiting to get into the car. That is at Silverstone. You can clearly tell that because the Hilton's in the background. But you notice he's wearing a ring. Now, F1 rules don't allow you to wear jewellery in the cockpit, so I trust he will take that ring off before he gets into the car. And in the background here, you've got Javier Bardem, who is wearing that grey suit, which he was wearing on Sunday at the track. Now, this is the tunnel at Monza, and that heads down to the left-hander, Ascari. Now, this is the first point in the trailer that we see the drivers, the F1 drivers. That vision was taken last year in Silverstone, and after that, all the drivers, including the 2 Apex drivers, walked up the grid to their cars. Next up, we see a whole lot of close action racing, which is designed to set the scene, to give you an idea of what you can expect when you go and see this movie. And then there's this moment, Gunther Steiner just taking a peek down pit lane, which they've used to perfection. Now, I'm wondering, does he get any extra payment for that? And how has he worked into the script? Or is it just a simple shot of him? Certainly, he is one of the most recognisable people in our sport, even though he is no longer with Haas. He's now a commentator, seen regularly at the track, and indeed he was at Silverstone on the weekend. This shot here is of the cars coming into pit lane at Monza, before we cut to a pit stop, which takes place in Silverstone. Now, to the untrained eye, this vision looks like it's genuine. Brad Pitt driving that car. Now, is that actually Brad Pitt driving that F1 car? Which, by the way, is not an F1 car, it's an F2 car, which has been cleverly modified, actually by Mercedes. They've given it front wing, side pods and rear wing to make it look a bit more like an F1 car. Yes, that is Brad driving, and I think that adds a whole lot of credibility to the movie. Now, obviously, he's not driving at anything like a speed that an F1 car would drive. But with such close-up camera angles as we're getting here, that really gives you and me, the viewer, a real feel for the speed, and that's what this movie needs to do. It needs to put us inside the car. And I love it that on the last beat of We Will Rock You, they cut straight to Brad Pitt's name, And then they go to the F1 logo. One of the big winners out of this movie should be the sponsors on the Apex cars. In fact, the sponsors on all the cars, because although in this trailer you only get to see what a Red Bull and a Williams are the only two cars that pop up apart from the Apex, certainly the sponsors on those cars will be happy because effectively that is free publicity for them. But the Apex car sponsors will be getting huge exposure. Tommy Hilfiger, for one, I was noticing Damson Idris had Hilfiger very boldly displayed on his casual clothes in the paddock on the weekend. Expensify will be over the moon, as will the likes of Geico, IWC and Shark Ninja. Oh, and I nearly forgot Bell Helmets. Of course, Brad Pitt is the star of this movie, and very few film stars are as big as Brad, even though at 60 years old, a lot of you are saying, how could he possibly drive a car at 60, an F1 car? Fernando Alonso is still doing it, but he's nowhere near 60. But it's interesting to watch when Brad moves around the paddock. He will have 2 security guards. And when Damson walks around the paddock, he will just pretty much walk along with one of the production crew and is chatty and easy to talk to. There's no doubt that if this movie goes well, this will be a great boost for Damson's career. Going forward, I'm interested to see if we're likely to get another teaser, perhaps 6 months away, just to keep that interest building. Certainly the media exposure that Brad Pitt generated over the weekend was huge, namely because he rolled up at the track with his new girlfriend, Ines de Ramon. He arrived on the Sunday, race day, in Silverstone, got out of the car with her and chatted for a little bit with spectators and then came into the paddock. But a lot of the media were out covering the drivers' parade, so there weren't many people with shots of this pair, and the sighting of the pair out and about for the first time was big news, and many of those reports mentioned that Brad Pitt was filming at Silverstone for the F1 movie. That's invaluable publicity. From that teaser, though, it's very hard to tell whether any of the drivers will have speaking roles in the movie. Certainly the ones I've spoken to haven't let on, but maybe they can't. I will be keen to see just how much they show of the TV media pen, because Brad was in the TV media pen after Sunday's race, filming with his crew. I think this movie is going to look great on screen, and even better if you go to an IMAX theatre where it's just completely surrounding you. But we'll have to wait nearly a year for that, because it's not released until the 25th of June next year. That's the international release. And interestingly, it gets released 2 days later in the USA. The 25th is actually the Wednesday prior to the Austrian Grand Prix. So I'm hoping there's actually a premiere of the movie in perhaps Vienna, so that we can get to see that on the Wednesday night and then head to the track later that night for Thursday's media day. So in short, so far, I like what I've seen. I think the teaser does a good job of whetting our appetite for some interesting fiction, and I can't wait to see if either of those Apex drivers end up on the podium. Now with that said, I'll ask you one favour, to please like and subscribe to the channel, and for a whole lot of extra content and merch, head across here. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate. Well, I better make sure the audio's working.